been probably about 2 years since the car was on the ground. Picking up a U-Haul truck and a car dolly, and picking up a '67 Cougar GT. There it is.
Almost in the cornfield.
Wow, check that thing out. Holy crap, it's like a barn find. Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Sean. This is the Cougar Eliminator Den. I appreciate you stopping by. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And now on to today's video. So one of the last things on the list to do to completely rebuild the power steering system is to re-grease the steering box. And I have this new tube of Motorcraft long life grease. So I'm going to try to remove this grease through whatever method, scraping it out. I have a brake cleaner, hoping that might be able to get in there and get some of the grease out. And after that, I have a instruction sheets somewhere. Printed off a instruction sheet from StingerSite.com on essentially a guide to how to lubricate an original steering box. So I'm going to do what I can to get all the grease out, and then I'm going to follow these instructions on adding new grease. And I'm hoping that's going to be enough to have a pretty good feel for the steering once I get the car back together. Might have to rebuild it at some point, but right now I'm gonna stick to this and we'll see how it turns out. So I got out decent bit of the grease, definitely not all of it, but after kind of looking at the grease, it isn't that bad. Like, it's not dried up, it's not super thick. It actually seems like it isn't. It isn't really that bad a condition. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just fill it with new grease, and we'll just see how it works. Maybe some of the old grease will come out the bolt holes, because I think part of the process is you fill it through here and you fill it until grease comes out the hole. So we'll see how it turns out. All right, it just came out the little hole right here, so it did work. Although not ideal, because some was coming out, but it did work. Now put the cap. Back on. And the other clean that off. Should probably put a new gasket on here before I continue, so I'm going to do that real quick. Alright, so I have the original tie rods right here, ready to go in. They're obviously not adjusted lengthwise. That will need to be done. I'm going to try to eyeball it. I do have the idler arm and the center link in right there. The bushing for the center link to the idler arm didn't want to move with the arm, so I had to kind of put some grease on there and try to get it to move. Still doesn't really want to move that well, but I'm gonna put the steering together and see how it feels. And yeah, I'm gonna work on putting the tie rods in now. I placed an order last week through NPD for various parts that I need to get the car on the ground. About 6 months ago or so, I placed an order through Eaton Detroit Spring for front and rear suspension rebuild kit, leaf springs, coil springs, mounting hardware, insulators, pretty much, yeah, all that stuff, rear shackles, leaf spring, mounting hardware, U-bolts, all that stuff, right? I don't know if I mentioned this in a previous video, but I went to install the leaf springs probably about 2-3 weeks ago, and I realized that, for one, the front eyelet bolts are too short, the ones I got from Eaton, and the U-bolts are too wide, like the actual U shape. The threads are too far apart, so they won't go through the shock plates. These are advertised as 67 Cougar parts, a 67 Cougar suspension, rear leaf spring installation kit, and the stuff isn't gonna fit a stock 67 Cougar. So these might be 68 parts. Don't know. I think 68 went to a shorter leaf front eyelet bolt, which would be a 5-inch, which that could work. 67 has 6.5-inch bolt. Regardless, the parts are wrong. I've reached out to Eaton. Have not heard back from them. Customer service wise, haven't heard back. So I put an order through NPD. Can't wait around forever. I got to get the stuff put in the car, and I got an order in. Here are front eyelet bolts. I believe both these are AMK U-bolts. A couple front spindle mounting kit. Some ram cylinder stuff from out the ram cylinder, and some other stuff. Rebuild kit for the proportionate valve and distribution valve for the brakes, which I have right here. I have to rebuild both of these. And so yeah, I wanted to give a quick comparison on the U-bolts for 67. On the left here is the original U-bolts off the car. I would have used these, or would have put them back on the car, but U-bolts do stretch over time, and I don't want to be risking something like that just for keeping it all original. So I figured I'd get new ones. Here are the Eaton U-bolts. You can see a bit longer. Here's the original U-bolt off the car, longer, and like I said, you can see the actual width is different, right? So not gonna fit on at least a stock 67. Here are the NPD AMK U-bolts. These are a little bit longer, but that doesn't matter really. What matters is the width, and I'm hoping these are gonna fit. I mean, they don't look perfect, but I'm gonna try. And yeah, just overall, they're more correct. The nut is more correct. Here's the original nut. Here's the AMK nut. Cadmium, I believe is what that's called, or maybe it's zinc. So yeah, bit of a hassle, but I got the parts now. Hoping to get a reply from Eaton. I know people have complained about customer service from them in the past, so we'll see. Maybe I'll get a refund on this stuff. Oh, here's an original, or not the original. Here's the eyelet bolt I got from Eaton, and as you can see, quite a big difference, right? 1.5 inch, 5-inch, 6.5 inch. So yeah, not gonna work, unfortunately. They do look like good parts, quality hardware, but just not the right sizes. So I am happy though that I'll be able to get the rear leaf springs in the car, including the axle, of course. That's gonna be on the list. Don't know if I'm gonna do it right now, but yeah, I'm happy to finally get this thing on the road. Hopefully get the car back on the ground within the next week. We'll see. Here's the new U-bolts, the AMK, and they do in fact fit. So good news. Luckily my dad brought over this transmission lift. I thought I was gonna have to do it with a floor jack, but I have this thing now, so it should be a bit easier. I can get it on here by myself. Let's see. It's not roll that easily, it's kind of rusty. No, that's gonna work. Sorry. brake lines off, just in case anything going wrong with these. They're just hand tight. Others hand tight. There we go. Hopefully I'll be able to put these on later. No problem. We'll see. I should go back farther. Watch out. That looks pretty good. Let's see if it will rise up, no problem. Let's see. Nice. That's really good. All right. Down. Okay. Now on to putting the rear end in. I have everything staged here. Shock plates, spring boxes. I don't know what you call these. Little Cougar only spacer things, whatever. Rear shackles, bushings. All right, and yeah, one of the shackles is on the car, and I'm gonna get to work. All right, both the leaf spring front eyelet bolts are in. They're not tightened, they're just have the nut threaded on a little bit, and now I'm ready to wheel the, sorry for the light, wheel the axle in, and get it to proper height, and then bolt the rear leaves to the shackles and to the frame. I'm going to grease the rear leaf spring shackle bushings. The manual doesn't say to do this, but I just figure it can't hurt, and it'll probably make the installation a little bit easier. I got the rear end fully staged. Nothing's tight. I just have them rear shocks in the lower mount, just hand tight, and then just sitting in the upper mount. No hardware on top. Those are KYB gas adjust shocks if you're curious. Yeah, everything's staged. The U-bolts are just hand tight, and yeah, everything went pretty smoothly. Getting the U-bolts lined up with the box and the lower shock mount is a little bit annoying, but I got them lined up and I got them in, and yeah, pretty happy with how it's turning out. Pretty close to get the car on the ground and rolling. I swung by the auto parts store earlier today. I picked a couple things. Also went to Home Depot. Here is a 1/2-inch torque wrench for doing for torquing all the various nuts and bolts and stuff on the rear end. U-bolts, eyelet bolts. I got some ammonia. This is for soaking the proportioning valve and distribution valve for the brakes. I also have a rebuild kit for both of these. That's coming in the future. Bearing packer for doing the front wheel bearings and stuff, packing them with grease. White lithium grease for doing greasing various things, like maybe like sway bar bushings, stuff like that. And I got anti-seize lubricant, which I should have had this yesterday. Last night after putting the rear end and the leaf springs in, I was doing some research, and people were saying that you probably should put anti-seize on the front eyelet bolts, because the last thing you want is a couple years from now the front eyelet bolts being rusted to the leaf springs, because that tends to happen. So I picked up a little bottle of that. I'm going to pull the front eyelet bolts out, put some anti-seize compound on there, lubricant, I mean, and to put some anti-seize lubricant on there, and hope that if I have to pull them in the future, there won't be any issues. Now that the U-bolts are torqued down to about 45 pounds or so, I'm going to use my transmission jack to jack the rear end, and I'm going to bolt in the shocks from the top, torque those down, and also torque down the bottom shock mount. Just temporary. Might even have to take it off again. We'll find out. I just tightened down the eyelet nuts and the shackle nuts. Didn't torque them, just tightened them down. And now I'm going to lift the car up by the rear axle and pull the jacks out from underneath the frame rails, and we'll see how the car sits on the ground. It's been probably about 2 years since the car was on the ground. I have a couple blocks under each side, right there, and this side too. So yeah, we'll see how the car looks. First time it's on the new suspension. See how the tires hold up. There is the potential ride height. Obviously the springs will take up some time to settle. It's looking pretty high right now. A lot of room in between. Also, there's no weight in the front, obviously, so it's hard to say what it'll really look like. It's on the rear suspension for the first time in 2.5 years, since probably August, or yeah, about August 2021.